Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1421B, and today's date is November 9th, 2017, and the title of the episode is, It's All Happening at Once. Meanwhile, Wisconsin prepares for the power grid collapse. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, we can see the powers that be, the cabal. They've been trying to remove the identity of the people here in the United States. And by doing this, they're trying to remove certain statues, saying that this is racist. And they're continually doing this. But we have to remember, back in time, this was a completely different time when all this was happening. And if you look back to the Founding Fathers, you would have to wipe all that. Actually, you'd have to go back in history and wipe everything out, because even the church, I mean, think about this. You would have to remove everything that ever happened in history to make everything okay, which is completely impossible, because history is what brought us to this point. We need to look back in history to find out the mistakes that we made and to improve on what we're doing. Now, there's a lawyer out there, and the California's NAACP, they're pushing for state lawmakers to support a campaign to remove the Star-Spangled Banner as the country's national anthem. And they're saying that this is why the NFL players are taking a knee, because the Star-Spangled Banner is completely racist because of three lines which are not even sung during the national anthem. The three lines are, "Their blood has washed out their foul footsteps pollution. No refuge could save the hireling and slave from the terror of flight or the gloom of the grave." And they're saying that this whole thing, this is why the NFL players are taking a knee, because of this specific passage. And once again, over the many, many years, everyone was perfectly fine, and all of a sudden, people are having a problem with this. And again, if you go back in history, you'd have to remove everything that happened, because there are certain things that, happen with the church, with religion, with everything up to this point. And I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to remove all identity from all the countries. And this is why they let the refugees out. This is why they wanted everyone to intermingle. This is why they wanted everyone to become one and the same, because eventually what they wanted is to have a one world government where everyone was the same. There were no separate countries. There was no anything except everyone living the same exact way in a third world type of situation. And it looks like they're pushing this agenda very, very hard. And we'll have to see how much traction they get. At this point, I don't think it's going to go that far, because I see the NFL already, they're losing viewership. People like Papa John's, they're like pulling out. They're very upset about the NFL, and it's not going as planned. We see the president called out the Democrats, saying that, listen, all these illegal aliens, they voted in the election and they voted for Hillary. And remember, Obama, they were bringing in illegal immigrants into this country. If they jumped over the border, they were allowed to stay. They had buses set up. They were bringing them into different cities where they were getting funded to house these individuals. They got their working paper. Some got even Obamacare. And we see right now, Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton says that over 1.1 million illegal aliens voted for Hillary Clinton during the 2016 election. And he did this study, and he looked at all the information, and he has this calculation where he came up with this number, and he says he has complete proof of all of this, saying that yes, they were voting in the election. Now, once again, we're starting to see a lot of information come out, and the cabal, what they've been trying to hide over all this period of time, it is completely falling apart. We see out in the Middle East, things are really starting to heat up. The Saudi King Salman, 81, he may abdicate his throne in favor of his 32-year-old son, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, and the king will announce his decision in the next 2 nights. Now, what we're seeing is that the Saudis, they have basically arrested more than 1,300 individuals. They've frozen like 1,200 accounts or so, and they're doing a huge crackdown right now, because we also see something else happening, something in Lebanon, and this might be pushed by Israel and Saudi Arabia together, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to get into Iran. And remember, Lebanon is on the border of Syria, and it looks like they might be trying to make a push into Syria, maybe then go to Iran, and we're going to have to wait to see. But the Saudis, they have ordered their citizens to leave Lebanon immediately. And they're saying, listen, we don't want anyone traveling to Lebanon. We want individuals to leave Lebanon. We also see Kuwait. They're ordering their citizens to leave Lebanon immediately. And they're saying we don't want our people going there because they're very afraid of what is going to happen. And once again, we knew eventually they were going to push some type of an event. And we know it's a matter of time before Syria, Russia say, we do not want the coalition forces in Syria. And once the coalition forces in Syria have to leave, it is game over. So it looks like they're building up something very large right now. We know that Israel is having a huge aerial drill right now, and we're going to have to watch this situation very carefully. We see the Egyptian president, El-Sisi, is out there saying, listen, he has information saying that the Islamic State is being transported from Syria now to Libya. And once again, what we're seeing is they're taking the paid mercenaries, putting them into Libya, and protecting them there in this country to wreak havoc there, because we could see that Russia is making deals with General Haftar, and Haftar is about to take over the country. And once again, they don't want this to happen. So we see that things are really starting to heat up here. We know there's going to be some type of an event, and they've been pushing this for quite a while, and it looks like they're getting prepared for something very large. We understand that the UN came out with their chemical report, and China is out there, and they're calling on the Security Council members to be patient over the investigation of the use of chemical weapons in Syria. The Security Council was briefed Tuesday afternoon on the findings of the latest report of the Joint Investigative Mechanism, which is JIM. This is the abbreviation that they use. And what they're saying is that everyone needs to be patient because, first of all, the United Nations, they didn't carry out an on-site field investigation. And this is raising red flags all over the place, and China is very concerned about this. Russia is very concerned about this. Syria is very concerned about this. And the only nations that aren't really concerned about this are the United States and the coalition forces, saying, yeah, there doesn't really need to be an on-site investigation. There's no reason for it because we believe whatever the white helmets say and whatever the militants say. Which is absolutely ridiculous, because if you're really going to investigate something, you need to bring investigators in, you need to take test samples, you need to look at the situation, and you need to go there and do this. Otherwise, you're just believing the word of anyone. Can you imagine a murderer saying, hey, yeah, here's my friend, listen, whatever he says, this is what happened. And would you believe this person? Would you go with the testimony, with all the information from this one person? Or would you investigate the murder and try to figure out what really happened here? Take test samples. And this is what China and Russia are trying to say. But Nikki Haley is just holding up pictures. These are all the people that suffered. That's all you have to look at. That is not evidence. That's the aftermath, which is completely fake, phony, and false. But that's all they want people to look at. And China and Russia and Syria are saying, let's have an investigation. And of course, the United States and the coalition forces don't want this to happen because guess what? They would find out that this really didn't happen. It was planned. It's a false flag. And it really didn't occur. This is why they're not going down that route. We see the Syrian army. They have announced full recapture of the Islamic State town that they held, and it looks like we're getting very, very close to where they're going to ask the United States and the coalition forces to leave. We see WikiLeaks, they was out there, and they published a CIA hacking tool designed to impersonate Russia's Kaspersky lab virus checker. So on September 18th, the U.S. Senate voted to ban the use of products from Moscow-based cybersecurity firm Kaspersky Lab by the federal government. And they also said they wanted all the private companies to get rid of Kaspersky. First of all, Kaspersky was picking up the CIA malware, and they didn't want this to happen. Secondly, they're saying that Kaspersky, they were instructed by Russia to perform cyber attacks on certain government agencies, certain corporations, and this turns out to be, once again, fake, phony, and false. What we're looking at right now is that the CIA specifically designed hacking software codenamed Hive, which intentionally impersonated the Russian cybersecurity firm so that if the target organization looks at the network traffic coming out of its network, it is likely to misattribute the CIA exfiltration of data to uninvolved entities whose identities have been impersonated. And what they did was they used digital certificates for the authentication of implants, and they were generated by the CIA impersonating existing entities. And they looked into this and said, yes, this is exactly what was happening. WikiLeaks put the information out. Kaspersky's out there saying, yes, we're in the middle of this political battle right now, and we didn't do any of this. And we can see from the CIA, from Vault 7 and the rest, that they have the ability to impersonate many different types of malware. They are able to leave breadcrumbs to make it look like it's coming from North Korea, Iran, Russia, China. It doesn't really make a difference. They have the ability to do this, and we know that the intelligence agencies, the NSA, the CIA, have embedded malware into the chips of almost every single computer, every single smartphone, and the malware that they had on a lot of the systems, Kaspersky was starting to pick it up, and they started to get very nervous, and they didn't want that to happen. And we can see that they're being found out right now. Now, we talked a lot about how there could be, and it looks like they're building up to this, some type of cyber attack on the power grid, or maybe an EMP or anything like that, because over the many years they've been having this drill called the Grid X, and it usually happens in the beginning of November, which it just passed, and they did have this Grid X drill. We see Wisconsin right now, the Wisconsin National Guard, they are having a 2-day military drill which will take place in Columbia County at the Wisconsin's Emergency Operations Center in Madison, and they're going to simulate a total power grid collapse on November 15th and 16th. And the press release states that the public should not be alarmed or concerned if they notice an increase of law enforcement, military personnel, vehicles, and whatnot. And the drill is in conjunction with the national level exercise known as Grid X. And basically, a lot of the teams that are going to be there are the State Emergency Operations Center, Business Emergency Operations Center, 65 soldiers from the National Guard, FEMA, Region 5, and once again, we need to understand that they're preparing for the grid to go down. Now, it could be from a physical attack, a cyber attack, an aging infrastructure, a geomagnetic storm. It really doesn't matter, but they are definitely preparing for the power infrastructure to go down and to have certain regions without power. And I believe back in 2003, that was a test case. They wanted to see if the malware that they implanted into the system was able to bring down the power grid, which it did, and it brought it down on the East Coast. And I was in Manhattan at the time when the whole power grid went down, and I believe that was a test case. And remember, Janet Napolitano, who was head of the DHS when she was leaving, said it's not a matter of if, but when the power grid goes down. Now, do I think the whole United States is going to go down? No. I think they've already chosen selected areas, and I believe most likely Wisconsin, this whole area, is going to be one of them. I believe the East Coast, a lot of different areas around New York is going to go out. I believe out maybe in the West Coast, but I think what they're going to do is they're going to be very strategic in which places they shut down, but they want the message to get out there, so they have to leave other areas with power and allow people to spread the message that these things are happening. And I don't think it's going to happen all at once. I think it's going to be a slow grind, and they're going to do it one at a time, showing that, this is actually happening, and they want people to become afraid. They want people to get scared, and all they have to do is mention EMP, cyber attack, because really you're not going to see anything. The power is just going to go out, and they can spread this to the financial institutions to say that the United States is being attacked. And remember, NATO, the United States, if there is any type of cyber attack or EMP where they explode a nuclear weapon over the United States, they could say this is an act of war. So no matter if it's a cyber attack or a nuclear weapon, it makes no difference. They can push a war on any country. And I think cyber attack is a little bit easier because they don't have to prove anything. All they have to do is say, yes, we were cyber attacked. And in a matter of hours, they can say, we tracked it down, just like they did with the Sony hacking, which never came from North Korea. We tracked it down and it was North Korea, or it was Russia, or it was China. It doesn't really make a difference because they're going to do it within a couple of hours. They want everyone to know where it was coming from. And whoever the enemy is at that time, and it looks like it's North Korea, maybe Iran, they're going to say, yes, this is where it's coming from, and we need to do something because they just destroyed the economy. Your life savings in the banks just disappeared. We need to lock down the banks. We can't allow you to take the money out. We have to track it down. So we're going to be on a bank holiday for a certain period of time. And it looks like we're getting closer and closer to this time period because we can see already out in the Middle East, they're starting to push the event there. And this is going to spread. And out in North Korea, we can expect something else to happen because I don't think it's just going to be a one-off thing. I think they're going to try to have this happen in many different areas. So they might even say it's the Islamic State doing a physical attack on the power infrastructure because they did have something happen out in California where there was an individual, and they never caught them, where they were bringing down the power infrastructure, and they did cut some wires, they brought it down, and they could use this and say that they've been testing, they've been placing bombs and things like that around these different areas, and they could say it was the Islamic State. I mean, anything is possible right now, but whatever they do, they need to make it look bigger than life. They need everyone to understand who the enemy is, why we're going to war, and what they did. They brought our society to its knees. They brought the financial institutions to its knees, and they drained the banks of your life savings. And this is why we need to go to war. And we can see this is what they're building up to. And they've been building up to this for a very long time. And this is why you need to be ready and prepared. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.